It's time for Kicking It with Koz. Welcome, everybody. This is Koz here at WTF Nation Radio, and you have tuned into Kicking It with Koz. And we are here on this beautiful Sunday evening, on the 16th day of February. So Valentine's Day has come and gone. I hope you guys had and ladies, I hope you all had a spectacular Valentine's Day. And if not, I hope you just had a good day. It was Friday. I had a good day. I spent Friday with the guys from the Grunts Gaming Network. We played some Jackbox games on Friday night. That was kind of fun. Had a good time. It was a good time. I had never been on a Grunts Gaming Network broadcast before, and it was a whole lot of fun. I'm not a gamer, not a shoot 'em up guy. I'm more of a cerebral person, so I like the quizzes and the trivias and the make up silly answers to stupid questions. So that's kind of what my Valentine's Day comprised of. On an up note, I did not contract the coronavirus, which is now being affectionately known as COVID-19. They renamed it, and COVID-19 just means coronavirus 19. 2019, because that's when it was discovered, or where it reared its ugly head. And right now, I guess the official numbers for coronavirus, last week when we talked, what were we at? We were probably at 20,000 or 30,000. And now we're up to 71,292 coronavirus cases with 1,773 deaths. And 10,893 people who have been diagnosed have recovered. But there's a bunch of stuff going on about that coronavirus. There's so many conflicting stories and conflicting numbers coming out about that coronavirus that it's really, really hard to determine who to believe and what stats to believe. Just as practice, I don't believe a damn thing China says as an official word or as a country. Because I've seen video. I've seen the videos, man. The videos in China are horrible. They're welding people into the apartment. There's this like a steel gate that closes the entrance to these apartments. The government is going by, and they're like tack welding these gates closed so nobody can get out. It's really kind of disturbing.
Yeah, it is. I agree. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Hello, Tyler. Geez. People are kind of moseying in a little slower than normal. Hold on for a second. Hello?
Hola.
Hello, sir.
Hi there.
You're calling in a little bit early, but hello.
Yeah, I know. I was just checking my camera.
Okay.
So I'll see you guys in about an hour.
Okay, sir. We will see you in about an hour.
Okay, thanks.
Sir, do you still hear me?
Yeah.
Call me, or if we've got you on, what I will do is I will actually call you back at about 10 after, okay? And I'll call you back. Is that okay?
Okay, good. 10 after, I'll be ready.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, see you.
See you.
Now, a lot of folks are probably going, well, who the heck was that? No idea who that is. Well, that right there is going to be our guest at the top of the hour.
That is our guest, and his name is, and I want to make sure I pronounce this right because Mr. Koz made sure I have it, Petitmermet, or Pete.
P plus 10.
Pete?
Yeah, P plus 10. And, he had, my last name is pretty involved, so I had a lot of issues in the Army, so everyone just called me Koz, so here I am, and I'm Koz, because I'm like K plus 10. But Tom's got that name. Petitmermet is the way you pronounce his last name. He is the author of Pretzel 06. which talks about his time as a controller in the Air Force during the Vietnam War. And this gentleman had 500 and some change missions in the short amount of time that he was there. And it's an amazing story. He's got the book Pretzel 06. You can go to Tactical 16 and look at the books there that are available, and just search for Pretzel 06 and you'll find it there. And then that'll link you to probably Amazon or something, and then you can buy the book if you like.
And it actually should be pretty. From what well, we're going to hear about it, so I can't say much, but it should be a very interesting story. As always, I try to make sure that people come in and give us a good understanding of what their story is about, and give us a full explanation so that they pique our interest, so that we will go in and want to buy it. So I'm looking forward to hearing this myself. I'm someone who loves helicopters, so I wanted to be a helicopter pilot, so this should be interesting definitely for me.
That's a Cessna. He's standing in front of.
Uh-huh.
As fixed wing. It's not a helicopter. But
helicopters you're right. Awesome, you're right. Too. I'm wrong. That is a old Cessna. Thank you.
Anyway, Tom's going to be on about the top of the hour, maybe 10 after ish. Or we can bust out here early and he can be on at the top of the hour. Who knows?
Well, I told him 10 after, so I will be calling him at 10 after.
Sounds good to me.
Anyway, hello, Holly. Hello, Rob. It's good to see everybody. Come on in, shuffle on in. Please, if you have the hankering, please like, share, and follow us, of course. We can always use the love.
Being that it was Valentine's Day.
Exactly. Love us, please. We would love the love. Let me do a quick share as I am.
So I was talking about, while you were punching buttons and setting the broadcast up, I was talking about the coronavirus, COVID-19.
Yes.
And there were official numbers of 71,000 and some change, or 72,000 and some change. But if you look at these reports coming out from private people in China.
Yes.
Not Chinese people, but just reporters who happen to be in China and cannot leave. They're reporting lots and lots and lots and lots of really horrible news.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So, Chinese scientists are now believing that the deadly coronavirus may have started life in a research facility that is just about 300 yards from that fish market that originally got the blame for this breakout.
Really?
That's a report coming out of the South China University of Technology.
Huh. Dang. I mean, okay, now, did you notice this? And this is the one thing I noticed this week. Did you notice the numbers went from very few to a whole lot?
Well, last week, I think we were right around 40,000. And then there was a one-day spike of like 16,000, 15,000 of which were like a recalculation of those that were infected.
And that's what I mean.
There was a new type of test that they were testing these potential patients with that was actually yielding more people that were testing positive for the COVID-19 virus.
Well, what they're also saying is they don't, and this is something that they're bringing up, is they don't have the materials to put together the kits to test everybody at this point.
Well, when you have everybody kind of quarantined, I mean, there's probably 700 million people whose travel is adversely affected.
Oh, yes.
Their free travel within the country is very, very limited right now because of this. And then there's, of course, all these ships, these cruise ships out there that have thousands of people on them, and there's one in particular sitting in dock in Japan, and everyone's quarantined. No one can leave.
Wow.
There was an American couple on there. Actually, I think there still is. I don't know if they have a choice or not, but the United States came down and they said, okay, we are going to get our people out.
Yeah.
And these folks were were interviewed, and they said that they're in good health. They would much rather stay on the boat than get off. And they had some really interesting, valid points. They said that they're doing this quarantine. They're in good health. The people that are around them are in good health. It's just a precautionary measure.
Yeah.
But they don't want to be made to go get off the bus, or I'm sorry, get off the ship to get on a bus with other potentially infected people, only to get on 2 aircraft that the State Department's supplying, flying overseas, and then being quarantined again once they get to wherever they're going.
Yeah.
They're in good health now. They don't want to risk that.
And that's smart. That's very smart, actually.
So they're like, leave us on the boat. I mean, they get 3 meals a day, plus their particular room has a balcony, so they can go outside anytime they want.
Oh, nice.
So they got a good room. They got a good suite. But there are others that have interior rooms that don't have that. They're allowed like 2 hours of outside time a day.
Yeah.
Just because they're in the inside cabins.
Oh,
so
yeah,
yeah. They don't have like a porthole, or they don't have a window, or they don't have the ability to just step outside.
Rob's bringing up something interesting. You have to, and this is it. This has been brought up on some of the news I watch. Although this week I wasn't really good about watching the news. I was doing something else. But what I did see, the one question that kept coming up is, okay, we know it's crossing borders, and we know that people everywhere are starting to get it. There's no reports from North Korea.
Well, because there's no reports from North Korea.
Exactly. And they say that's the question is, okay, because North Koreans, they've already verified that North Koreans really aren't of the best health. They don't get really good food, so on and so forth. So the possibility of this spreading like wildfire in a place like that is very high.
Or wondering how North Korea is going to deal with it.
And that would be the other question that came up is, okay, great, they know that there's this outbreak. A lot of their workers actually go into China and then come back across the border. So then the question is, okay, they're bringing it in to North Korea, and how is North Korea, because they don't have the medical for it. They don't have the technology. They don't have a lot of things. So would they just start putting them in camps and letting them die? Or, is this their way of knocking down the population?
I'd hate to think that would be the truth. I agree with you. I don't think that they're in any way, shape, or form equipped to deal with something like this. I think it would behoove, I'm going to say the word behoove, I think it would behoove China to close the border to North Korea if they can.
You would think, yes.
Don't leave it up to North Korea. I mean, someone's got to take charge.
Exactly. Oh, hello, Bailey. How are you?
This is serious business, man. It really is serious business.
And Rob, you're right. Okay, the flu kills so many people a year, and you're right about that. Okay, and I agree with you. The difference is, and this is what I said last week, the coronavirus it started out animal. So it's something that can jump. So it's not something that can be stopped just by isolating people, because if animals can contract it, therefore it can travel to other animals and then keep going to other people that are in the vicinity. And the other part is it's supposed to be one that is easily mutated. It mutates itself every couple generations quicker than most like flus that are out there. So then you have to worry that because it mutates so quickly, can you come up with a vaccine quick enough?
They've been treating this with HIV medication successfully.
Yeah. They said that is probably right now the only thing that is saving a lot of people. And the actual medication that they're using is immune boosters. They're not, HIV, the biggest problem that HIV people have is our immune system goes into the trash, just like mine did. Okay, they go down to where they can't fight anything. You don't die of HIV 95% of the time. You die of extenuating circumstances because of HIV, meaning you die of pneumonia, meaning you die of something that went out of control of your body, kidney failure, liver failure, all these other things. You rarely die of just HIV because it's an immune system killer. It's an immune deficiency. Well, you give the people a immune booster because they don't have any kind of vaccination against it right now. And they said that that is what is saving a lot of people at this point. Luckily, I'm already on immune booster.
But hopefully, I mean, right now the count is. Let me pull that up again. 71,330. Actually, that's gone up since we started the show.
Yeah.
With 1,775 deaths.
And that's what I mean is you got to remember, what was it 2 weeks ago? It was hardly anything coming out of China. They were reporting tens, not hundreds. And now we're into the thousands. China originally, I think it was just a couple weeks ago, was only reporting 1,000 people. Less than 1,000 people had it. So the report is that they're finally coughing up at least some of the numbers, but they don't even think that at this point that they're still getting them.
I mean, they're alarmingly high, but a lot of the experts out there, like from CDC and Johns Hopkins, are saying that it's probably a whole lot more than what's being reported.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, China, unfortunately, you can't trust them. And at this point, I think even if they wanted to give you all the numbers, I don't think they could. Because with that quarantine, the way they've done it, they don't know who's died in apartments. They don't know who just hasn't been reported. They just don't. So, well, hello, Miss Spanky. How are you doing?
I used the word behoove, Spanky. So I said behoove, and then Spanky shows up. All I got to do is I'm going to go over to Mixer and drop her some snacks just so she doesn't kill me.
That, I'm sure you're going to say something about her red minivan.
I wasn't, but since you brought it up. One of the sexiest minivans I know of.
Let me see. Beer, bacon, cake, candy, fries, ice cream, popcorn, pizza. Koz knows how to throw a party.
Thing is that her badass minivan got us from where the hell were we? We were in Boulder, and that got us from the apartment that we were staying in to the airport in probably an hour, less than an hour. And it should have taken a whole lot longer than that. But Jay Reddy was driving, and I was white knuckling it in the passenger seat, and Spanky was in the back seat laughing at me.
Let me guess. They consider you the old man of the group, the one who drives ultra slow.
I drive horribly. I've been in a couple of very serious car accidents. And it's all due to another person who was driving.
Okay.
So I get really skittish when I'm driving and other people are driving. When I'm traveling and other people are driving. It doesn't matter. It can be my daughter. I'm like,
were you smart enough to have someone else teach your daughter how to drive?
No, I taught her how to drive.
Oh Lord, that girl probably was a basket case, huh?
No, she's actually very, very good. She's very good. My younger one, my kids are 2 years apart. So when my oldest daughter was learning how to drive, she was 15 years old, and my youngest daughter was 13. But we would all go out together, and my oldest daughter would drive, and we'd go, starting in the parking lot, and then the next week we'd get out on the road, And then she was comfortable driving in town, and we'd practice backing into parking spaces and navigating parking lots and parking in full parking lots. Then I took her onto the interstate, and she just did really, really well. So one day we got back to the parking lot, and I said, "Hey, stop the car." And then this is where they went to high school. So I had my older daughter get out, and I gave the keys to my younger daughter. I said, "Why don't you give it a shot?" And she traveled about 15 feet, stopped the car, turned it off, handed me the keys, and she goes, "I've had enough." But they're both. I mean, right now they're 21 and 19, so they're good. They're good drivers right now.
Rob says his wife won't let him drive. She was an MP, and he can't stop scanning ditches for IEDs and deer.
He kind of throws a wrench into things.
And Spanky says you're more than welcome to come down and teach her daughter.
Oh.
Because she doesn't want to.
It's fun, and it's easy, and it's just a matter of relaxing. She's at that age. She's taken. Well, the thing is, I don't know the way they do it here. When my kids went through driver's ed, it was done in. We were in Ohio, and it wasn't a school. It wasn't taught in school. When they were eligible to get a learner's permit, they went and they got a learner's permit from the motor vehicles department.
Yeah.
And then it's a third party driver's training type thing.
Yeah.
You're in a classroom with 10 or 12 or 15 other people, and you go and drive, and you do all the classroom stuff. So it's all not related to the school. When I took driver's ed, it was a class.
Exactly. Same here. You took it during the summer. For us, you took it during the summer, and your parents almost insisted, because as long as you came out with a certificate, you were at that point given, your parents were given a little bit of a break on their insurance.
I never trust. It's not that it's not a thing of, it's not trust. It's just like with school, with my kids. I wasn't always happy with the school teaching them things. There was always, whether or not they had homework to do, there was always homework to be done.
Yeah.
New things to read, other things to study, new ways to do, certain math problems or whatever. And it really paid off, man. That extra time that me and my wife at the time spent with the kids as far as their education goes, it really paid off. I got some pretty freaking smart kids.
Oh, yeah.
And I treated driver's ed the same way. Just because they went to a class and they said, "You're good to drive," I'm like,
does
when
not
you drive
mean
one of my cars, I'm going to make sure that you're good to drive.
Exactly.
So we spent a lot of our time after school. If my kids weren't in dance class or some other extracurricular, we were out driving. Grab the keys, man. Let's just go for a drive.
And see, with me, my son being autistic, everybody's like, he's not going to be able to drive. And I said, bet me. He went through, because of his autism, we put him into a driving school, which in our state, they actually require it. The schools no longer do it. So you have to pay them. And then, as long as you pass the course, you don't have to take the driving portion of your test, because it's already taken care of in the school. And my son went through it and passed. He does fine on his own now. So yeah, it's with that type of thing, it's definitely hard being a parent sometimes. Spanky said in Texas you can't get a license until you are 18 unless you go to the driver's training. She did 3 weeks of classroom and 10 hours on the road. See, they require more than that in state of Washington.
Texas is relatively flat.
Yeah.
Especially like in north central Texas. I know down in the hill country, down toward Austin and Georgetown and stuff, it gets a little bit hilly, but I mean nothing compared to your neck of the woods.
No. And not only that, you some of it is weather training because you do have to be aware of the weather, ice, snow. They actually have one of those cars where the thing constantly is doing spins and stuff. So, yeah, it gets interesting. Said up here, kids are. Rob said up here, kids are required to get 70 hours of time behind the wheel with the parents after the driver's ed class before they can take the driver's test.
70. That's amazing. I like that. That's
and
good.
up here, I don't know if he's from Washington State. I think that's kind of the same here because I know we actually see. I had to get in hours, but then before he was even allowed to take the driver's class. But then the driver's class finished off his hours. You had to have so many hours already logged in, and then you had to go and take and then he took the rest of the hours with the driving class.
That's good. I mean, because nothing beats practice, man. Nothing beats getting out on the road and just driving. You don't have to do, a bunch of parallel parking. Just get out and drive. Because that's what you're going to do when you're an adult. You're just going to get out and drive. As adults, we get up in the morning, we take a shower, eat breakfast, and then we get in a car and we drive and we go somewhere. And then we get in a car and drive home. Or we're always driving somewhere, especially if you have younger kids that have things to do.
Oh, I agree.
That's the best. The best practice is just practice, drive, just do it.
Oh yeah, I agree. Oh, Rob says Maine. He's in Maine. Yeah, and see with us, with me. That was the big thing with me. I would go out with my son and say, "Okay, come on, you're going with me," and make him take the wheel. And he didn't like me being the one because I'll just sit there and I'll smile, and at the end of it, I'll say, "Okay, here's what you did wrong."
I remember when I was a kid, we would drive a lot from like Chicago to Cleveland to visit my grandparents. And I'd be sitting in the passenger's seat in the front, and my dad, would be on the interstate. He's like, "You want to take the wheel?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!"
Uh-huh.
So he'd control the pedals, and I'd do the steering. And then, from the passenger side, but it was cool. It was cool that it was just a cool thing to do.
And see, when I grew up, I lived in Nebraska. They actually made it so that you could get a driver's license at the age of 14 if you lived in the countryside. Otherwise,
or if you worked on a farm.
Yeah, in other words, farm kids, stuff like that. I wasn't one of those. You could get your whatever driver's license where you have to have a parent in the car at the age of 15.
A provisional learner's permit.
Yeah, a learner's permit. And then at 16, you could get your regular driver's license. My parents, I had my car at the age of 15, and they made me go out with my car and drive them around just so that I could get used to driving around in my car rather than their car. And then when I became 16, I actually went and got my driver's license during a blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually took the driver's license or the driving test in a blizzard and passed.
I learned how to drive a stick shift in a Mustang, a 1984 Mustang in the snow. And it was the easiest way to learn how to drive a stick because your wheels are always moving. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of snow on the damn ground. So that was how I learned how to drive stick.
And yeah, Spanky said same in South Dakota. Yeah, my brother got his license at 14. They're only allowed to drive to school and work at the age though, and that's what they were provisional licenses. Yes. With me, I didn't learn how to do a stick shift until I got in the Army. I had an automatic. I had a 1968 Buick Bel Air.
Damn.
Yeah. Right? A big old tank of a car.
I always like going to. I have an uncle, or had an uncle. He's passed, but I had an uncle in Texas who had a big ranch. He had a shitload of land, And then he had a marina that was attached to that land. So there was always a lot of work to do on the farm. He had cattle and everything.
Yeah.
So when we would go and visit, I got to drive the truck.
Nice.
And it was great. I was like freaking 10 years old driving a freaking truck. 3 on the tree type, just an old ass farm truck.
Oh man, I've heard stories about those.
It's great. The thing is, yeah, it's awesome. It was just a lot because you're not going to hit anything.
No.
You're out in the middle of freaking nowhere, hauling a trailer that has a bunch of hay bales or something on there.
Yeah. And see, with me, the old.
Too young to load the hay bales, but I wasn't too young to drive.
And Holly says she got her permit at 14. They lied and said her granny needed extra help driving. Holly. How disappointed.
Hello from Chernobyl. Patrick, what the hell?
Patrick? Chernobyl? Okay. Explain.
They're actually doing they're actually doing tours of Chernobyl now.
I know. I've actually seen those where they've taken cameras in, not just to show the tours that they take them on, but also I've seen the tours where the documentaries where they go in and they start showing you all the different wildlife and stuff everything that's happened since Chernobyl, how things are coming back, radiation levels, so on and so forth. What is it? I just read an article that snails, is it snails or fungus? Fungus are actually eating the radioactivity
inside because they put a big dome over the reactor core.
They had to because the what they did came apart. It was leaking hard.
Well, even when that dome was put up, they're just like we didn't really have a lot of time, and this is the scientists speaking. They said they didn't have a whole lot of time to really get into the engineering of this.
Yeah.
So they just put a dome over it, and they said this dome is going to be good for 20 years.
Exactly.
They put some kind of a timeline on it, and from that moment, the engineering was being developed for what they have now, and it's really quite awesome because they have a big robotic structure on the roof of this thing. The dome is closed and it's concealing all the radiation. It's concealing the core.
Yeah.
But there's actually a truss system over the ceiling, and robots actually are going in there and they're disassembling the rods inside that dome, and they're putting them in these big lead containers, and these cranes are stacking these containers.
Well, did you see what Patrick wrote? He said that's what my team and I are studying, black fungi.
Outstanding. That's great.
Wow, Patrick, I'm impressed, man. I'd love it if you. I mean, this is kind of off topic. I'd love if you, when you're done, you see my name. You see me, John Owl, right? I'd love to hear about some of this stuff because Chernobyl to me was one of those things. It was one of the big disasters of my time, and I'd like to know. I've always been curious about it. How anything that comes up Chernobyl on TV, I watch, because I mean they've showed what happened the day of, the week of, how things are going now, that type of thing. And I love finding out, because I mean that's something that it's going to have to be taken care of for many lifetimes.
Back when I had first gotten out of the Army, this is in the late 90s. There was, I had a computer, I got online, and there's just stuff to watch.
Yeah.
And I think YouTube had just kicked off, and there was a girl who lived in the Chernobyl area, and she drove a motorcycle. I don't remember what her name was, but she would strap a camera to herself, and she would go and drive through the contaminated areas.
Really?
She would just drive into it and go and take radiation samples, and it was more of an extreme type sport for her. And she noticed if you stay on the main road, you're good to go, but if you get off into the woods, if you walk out into the woods, the radiation levels out in the woods are much, much higher because that radiation got soaked into the foliage and the trees
exactly.
and whatnot.
And
so if you stay on the road, you're good to go.
They're actually saying there are certain waters also that are showing up with less radiation. Some of the lakes and stuff in the surrounding area. And some of the fish aren't even contaminated, and they can't figure that out. They're saying there are certain, certain animals that are actually not having problems, and they're thinking it's because what the animals eat. Oh, and hello, Derek. Good to see you, man. Oh, Derek, how is the foot? Derek had a fusion. He had one of his feet had to be fused on Friday. Valentine's Day.
Oh, great.
And I know that he has actually not worked since last year. We keep up with each other, and apparently they tried to put pins in and get it to heal up. It didn't heal up, and so now this was their okay. Well, we have to do something, so they fused it. And so that he went through that on Friday. I hope you're doing okay, Derek. I really do. Patrick says, see how much I can grab, only so much as what we do, and so on. That's all I'm interested in. I'd love to know how the black fungi are doing. What they're doing, and the fact that, I'd like to know. They say that it's actually taking away the radiation. I'd like to, give me as much as you can without making me feel stupid, okay?
Life kind of finds a way.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, what was it? It's kind of like, oh, there we are, Derek. I'm doing good. Very little pain. Wrapped up in a cast. Had 6-hour surgery. That's better than what they said. I think didn't they tell you it was to be a 7 or 8 hour surgery? So that went decently, bud. I'm glad to hear it.
Last winter, my mom broke a bone in her foot. And that was horrible for her.
Oh, yeah.
She likes to move around a lot, so they ended up putting her in one of those inflatable casts.
Mm-hmm.
Then they instructed her to sit around, do nothing, keep it elevated.
He's been out of work. What did you say, Derek?
Better part of a year?
Yeah, almost. I'm thinking somewhere. I correct me if I'm wrong. Somewhere around June or July. He hasn't been able to work. So
that's terrible.
Yeah, Derek, man, I'm just glad that they finally got you in. They said he's for the next 6. He won't be able to work for I think another 6 months. So that's not fun. I really don't. I feel bad for him. I haven't worked since last April. There we go. Yeah, I knew it would. I knew it was getting close to a year. So.
If you ever needed an excuse to be a professional gamer, that's it right there.
Right? He does play games. That's the funny part.
Oh, really?
He just doesn't. He doesn't broadcast, but he does play games. So no, man. Keep it up and keep the foot up and keep it healing. You don't want that to go bad, especially a fusion, man. That's the last thing you want to go bad because there's not much else they can do after that. Yeah, bed rest for 4 to 6 months. That's rough. Anyway, no, the whole Chernobyl thing, I'm always curious about that. Was it Rob said it was in high school when Chernobyl happened for him? I remember hearing about it, though, and, oh, geez. Do you remember? Do I have to look it up? What year did that happen? Do you remember?
I was just looking at when will Chernobyl be safe? And the response was, experts believe that the areas around Chernobyl nuclear power plant will remain uninhabitable for at least 20,000 years.
From what they're saying, yeah.
And the areas out and around the exclusion zone are thought to be uninhabitable for at least 3,000 more years.
Wow. 1986 is when it happened. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. 1986. I was
I was a sophomore in high school. Oh, I'm sorry, I was a junior in high school.
I was in Washington State. So I was not stationed overseas. Fixed metacarpal bone, fused my ankle, cut 6 tendons, and broke my heel. Moved it over. Yeah, they had to do a lot to Derek. Hopefully it works. Now have they got you stretching and doing physical therapy? I hope so, because especially with the tendons, that you can't do anything right away, but then you're going to want to, otherwise they're going to shorten. But no, Patrick, if you're still in the room, man, I'd love to hear a little bit about your research. Try to dumb it down for me. I'm not a scientist, but I love to hear stuff about Chernobyl. Excuse me, because it was definitely part of the time that when I was in the service, where I was, people have their time when they're really aware of things. I became more aware of things when I was in the service. You become aware of current events. When you're a kid in high school, you aren't always aware of things.
So I was looking at the 3 Mile Island accident, which happened in 1979.
Oh, yeah.
And that was labeled as a level 5 accident, and it had wider consequences. But it was only a partial meltdown. I believe Chernobyl was a complete core exposure meltdown.
Yes, it was. I remember reading about people that were in on trying to contain it. And even the guys who were like in the helicopters, because that's what they used, is they just basically dumped water onto it to get it to stop being on fire, and then they moved in and tried to put cement over it. And I remember reading about the pilots who did the water dumps, and how within 6 months, a lot of them ended up dying.
See, I was in Kuwait on my way to Kirkuk, Iraq, when the tsunami hit, the big earthquake, and then the tsunami took out the Fukushima Daiichi reactor.
Oh, wow.
And that was a level 7.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's still, I mean, right now they don't have, they've got water going in and cooling as much as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've got nowhere to put that water, so they're talking about dumping more of that out into the ocean.
They're talking about it, but if I remember right, they're saying that they're worried that they're already doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's already water being released, but they want to release more.
Yeah, Rob said he was over in
dude.
Germany
This is just...
in 1990, and they wanted to do blood tests and cardiac tests after he had been stationed there. And that's the thing is there was because Russia was so horrible about reporting it, and there was such a poor response. What was it? The only reason anybody found out about it was because a lot of detectors started going off in Europe. A lot of places that normally have just nominal radiation, all of a sudden everything was spiking, and when they started triangulating around the Soviet Union, they figured, it's coming from the Soviet Union somewhere.
They did something.
And I think they said it took a month. What was it, a month or 2 months before they finally admitted it? It took a week before they actually evacuated the people. So it had a lot of chance. It had a lot of time to actually the clouds of contaminated radioactivity had a lot of time to spread before they finally got it under control. The fires were out of control for quite a while.
Once that freaking core gets exposed, man, all bets are off.
Exactly.
Even with the old dome over Chernobyl, they had camera crews that were walking close to where the dome was or is, and you can see the radiation is actually affecting the way that the videos that they were taking,
Yeah.
the way that they look super duper grainy.
Yeah.
And it's not because they were shooting at a low resolution. It's just the radiation coming from the core was affecting the way that the videos were being recorded. It's crazy, dude.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You can't see it, and you can't even feel it. You can't taste it until it's too late.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you can taste it when it's too late, but I mean, when you start experiencing, your organs are shutting down, or you're developing cancers or whatnot.
And that's just it. Is with radiation, you can be exposed, and you don't know it until you find out the hard way. Your body starts telling you in some very nasty ways. I was actually trained in NBC medical. I was actually a medical NBC NCO for one of my units when I was there. He said, Rob said, Red Cross won't take his blood. So that sucks. That really sucks. And as far as Derek, yeah, well, until they can take it easy, until they start doing until they say you can do physical therapy, at that point, do what you can without hurting yourself, because that's going to be very, very important. You need that. Yeah, you really do. No, I remember that, along with Mount St. Helens. And I remember Mount St. Helen because my grandmother lived in Washington at the time. And we were very worried about her because, like, for 2 weeks, you really couldn't go anywhere because of the ash. And I remember also that the fact that they said within 10 years, life was starting to grow back over places that had been completely destroyed by the heat and the lava.
That happened in 1980.
Mm-hmm. I was in high school.
The reason why that was so disastrous is because it blew out the side. It didn't blow up.
Exactly.
It blew out.
It blew out the side and rolled down and knocked out a lot, miles and miles. And all the debris, the wood and everything, went into rivers and stuff, clogged the rivers up. It was horrible. They had a really hard time cleaning up after that. In fact, my wife is actually from Washington State. She said, yeah, she remembers that day because one minute it was a perfectly nice sunny day. The next minute it was just going dark.
Yep. Last eruption of Mount St. Helens was in 2008.
What?
The last, I'm looking at the geology report of Mount St. Helens. It's about 40,000 years old.
Yeah.
It is a stratovolcano, and the last eruption was in 2008.
Wow. Huh. Sit there.
It's an active volcano, so yeah.
Yeah. You sit there and you think about stuff like that, and I know you kind of can do it too. Some of you guys are still pretty young. You think about all the different events that you've lived through in your life. And at the time, you don't think about it until you can sit there and go back and, I wasn't there, but I can remember about Mount St. Helens. I can remember Chernobyl. I can remember watching TV when the first moonwalk. Things like that. You just sit there and you think about it. It's like, damn. That is history.
Or a lot,
What?
I said you've lived through a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always stuff going on.
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't realize how impactful and big deal things are.
Oh, yeah.
Until later on. And I mean, even this COVID-19, this coronavirus, it's pretty serious. But so was like MERS and SARS, and then there's all the the Ebola outbreaks in Sudan, and it's there's a lot of big stuff that happens. You don't realize how big it is until after it's done and over with, and you get to reflect on it, and you go, "Damn, that's some serious shit."
Well, my grandmother died at the age of 93, before she died, a bunch of the children and grandchildren. She had 8 or 9 brothers and sisters. They got together, the kids did, and the grandkids, and got the grandparents to tell their stories, the most memorable stories of things that happened in their life, and things that are just to them such an interesting change. Like my grandmother, she said she can remember when the first airport in the area went up and how big a deal that was. You go get some rest, Derek. Talk to you later, man. You can't you think about stuff like that. I mean, my grandmother, she was actually born over in Estonia, came over here and was here in 1906. And the things that she saw from that time up until she died, you just think about it. It's like, wow, that is a lot of things. You know, you and I talk about computers and smartphones and things like that, and how, you know, how times have changed for us. It used to be, you know, a long distance call, they charge by the minute, so on and so forth. But imagine she had to deal with actual calling an operator, and an operator had to patch you through.
Right? Like all that stuff you see on the black and white movies.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that having an airport was a very, very big deal. But even having a train station back then was a big deal. Because that trains were more consistent and could haul more. And so therefore, that's how you got your mail, is through the train system.
Well, back then, I mean, only the rich people flew.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's the type of thing that she made me think about. Talk to you later, Derek. Yeah, we'll talk to you later. That's the type of stuff that, ever since I saw that book of hers, her family's, the brothers and sisters, I sat there and I thought about it. It's like, you know, how much she went through. I mean, those were giant leaps. You're talking going from walking and horses to cars to planes, trains, to spacewalking, all in her lifetime. I mean,
from that age, I mean, you've lived through the Great Depression and 2 world wars.
Exactly. I mean, and her brother had actually been a E7 in the Marines, and actually been offered back then the first master sergeant of the Marines was an E8, and he was actually offered the job and turned it down. But he actually accounted for stuff like that. You can actually, hearing all those type of things, it's like, wow, that was so many years ago. And now we're living through our own history. And when you think about that, that you and I I've lived through Man on the Moon. I was a kid during the Vietnam era. Grenada. Telephones going from dial-up to push button to cell phone to smartphone. I mean, all this different change of technology.
Oh, well, then you look at someone who has kids. Even if you have young kids right now.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, how different their lives are.
Oh.
And how different their lives are going to be
Yeah.
when they're our age, or when they start having kids. It's pretty cool, man. I like the advances of technology, and some would say, yeah, it's making us lazier, but it's kind of there's a balance there. Yeah, it's really easy to just Google everything, but in other ways, you actually are you learn. We're good right now in these days of learning on the fly. You don't know how to do something, Google it.
Exactly.
Watch a YouTube video, and then you do it. And then you get better at doing it.
And see, with me, I always tell people, because I hear that, well, it makes kids lazier. It does if the parents allowed it. Otherwise, it actually makes the kids able to do more because, like you said, you can Google it. You can sit there and say, I don't know how to do this, and rather than have to go to school or find someone.
Or go to the library after work.
You can actually pull it up and go.
On something. You can it's right there in the palm of your hand.
And yeah, exactly. And that makes such a difference. And you just think about stuff like that, and it's like, wow, we're part of that age. It is always up to the parents to teach their kids good work ethic, good living ethic, to do things, to get your hands in it, and to be a part of it. But that falls back on parenting, and that's a whole nother subject.
Well, we can talk briefly about questionable parenting.
Questionable parenting. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
and that came out at the Bernie Sanders. He had. If you guys saw this in the news, he was in Carson City, Nevada.
Yeah.
And a group of protesters jumped up on stage. The Democratic presidential hopeful had just finished introducing his wife, Jane O'Mara Sanders, as the next first lady when a woman walked up to the microphone and started rambling about subsidies for the dairy industry. And there's videos of this online if they haven't gotten taken down yet.
Yeah.
And then she's, Bernie, I'm your biggest supporters, and I'm one of your biggest supporters, and I'm here to ask you to stop propping up the dairy industry and to stop propping up animal agriculture. I believe in you, she exclaimed before they cut her microphone.
Yeah.
And two more people hopped up on stage, and then they poured milk on themselves after they disrobed.
Oh, God.
Then the crowd started chanting, Bernie, Bernie, Bernie.
This is what happens, and my wife and I have talked about Bernie a number of times. Bernie is what happens when parents don't teach reality.
Well, I'm not even saying it's Bernie's fault. I mean, what about these young protesters?
Well, that's part of it. That's what they've been taught. Those kids, they want a perfect society, not realizing a perfect society is not possible. You need imperfections to make society move forward, and to have societies where you take over thought and responsibility makes it worse. But that's what kids think that they want, because that's the perfect society, because then everybody's taken care of, not realizing that if you do that, what you really end up with is people who become lazy both in mind and body. Rob, I know I don't necessarily like him, but you don't need to say that, okay? Bernie, I mean, come on. The guy lived in his mother's basement until he was 40 years old and married a rich woman, and he spent his honeymoon in Russia. He's a communist. He's not a socialist. Socialism is the bridge between democracy and communism, because socialism will collapse. And that's what's going on right now down in Venezuela. They had socialism. It's collapsed. So what do they have now? Communism. That's the automatic what happens. It just does. And unfortunately, our kids are being told to hate America, and that anything is better than America. And that's part of parenting. Parents need to actually be a part of their kids' lives and say, you may not like this, but There's a lot worse, and you just have to put in the effort, and you can actually make it.
There's never a free ride.
Exactly. We're at the top of the hour, my friend.
Yeah, we got to get Tom on the air.
Yep. So tell you what, I will go ahead. You need to go and take your dog for a walk, and have a nice dinner, and then get some rest.
It's been a good quick hour, man. Great having this conversation with everybody here.
I always love having you on, man. We always have good conversations. Everybody, I will be back in 10 minutes with I have to look up the name and make sure I say it. Tom Petitmermet. There, I did it right. Petitmermet. There we go.
There you go.
And
P plus 10.
Pete plus 10. So everybody, I will be back in 10 minutes with the interview. So please stick around, and we will be back in 10 minutes.
And he's on the video too, so there'll be a picture.
Exactly. So
all right, have a good one.
Shots.
Before coffee on a Tuesday, it's already been a bad week. My girls had a couple flats, and my dishwasher sprung a leak. From the kitchen, her complaining, you know it just ain't cute anymore. I get the itch and start drifting towards the great outdoors. I smell the honeysuckle blooms, I can see the red buds too. In my garage, I got rods up on the wall. I got a John boat in the yard under a faded camo tarp. I need a reset to my spot, I hear the call. I've just gone fishing, let her know that I ain't gone. Junk mail don't come out there, my phone won't ring. The only thing I want to hear is my reel with a big one on a string. That large mouth don't talk at all, and my weight just sinks away. Set him free, bring him home, the one decision I gotta make. I smell the honeysuckle blooms, I can see the red buds too. In my garage, I got rods up on the wall. I got a John boat in the yard under a faded camo tarp. I need a reset to my spot, I hear the call. I've just gone fishing, let her know that I ain't gone. I got my tackle box in the front seat and my best friend in the bed. Don't come looking for me, 'cause I ain't coming home till long after that sunset. I smell the honeysuckle blooms, I can see the red buds too. I got the rods in my garage down on the wall. Threw my John boat in the truck, filled my camo cooler up. I hit the reset, hit my spot, and heeded that call. I've just gone fishing, let her know that I ain't gone. No, I ain't gone missing, I've just gone fishing, let her know that I ain't gone.
WTF Nation Radio.
Everything stated on WTF Nation Radio is to be considered the opinion of the person that stated it, and not an official representation of WTF Nation Radio or U.S. Army WTF Moments.
Price does not include tax, title, or license. Some assembly required. Each item sold separately. Batteries not included. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. If conditions persist, contact a physician. Individual results may vary. Keep out of the reach of children. Avoid prolonged exposure to direct sunlight. Keep in a cool, dark place. And
please enjoy the show. Shots.
All right. We are back. We are up. We are running. And let me do my switch real quick. There we go. All right. Here we are. While I'm doing this, I found my number that I'm looking for. And there we go. We're bringing up. Hello, Tom.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing wonderful.
Nobody told me you were going to kick up a camera. Otherwise, I would have had and done picture-in-picture.
No, I don't need a camera at all. If that's better for you.
That either way, I just was letting you know I'm not able to bring you in. I have to set up before I start the show to do that.
I'll tell you what. Let me just get rid of the camera. That's not a problem whatsoever.
Okay. All right, Tom. I appreciate you coming on. How are you doing, by the way?
Doing wonderful.
And you're playing. Now, if you're using Skype, all you do is actually hit the little camera and it'll turn off. There you go.
Yeah, got it. I'm a techno peasant, so be patient with me.
No problem. No problem. So anyway, I read a little bit about what you are. I do this on purpose, and some people say I shouldn't do this, but I do this on purpose. I try not to know too much about you, not because I'm kind of a sloth, because I'm not. What I do is when I get in, I try to make it so that you explain your book, where you come from, who and what you are, to me, so that the audience that you're going to be talking to can actually connect to you and have a chance to talk to you.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if I stop you and I say, hey, someone asked a question, that's because I actually am, at the time we're talking, I'm going to be monitoring chats at the same time. So if anybody has a question, they can ask you right away, because I want to see always our brothers and sisters from the military promoted. And that's what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to help promote your book. You're part of the Tactical 16 group. And that they're a very, very important group to us, because Tactical 16 promotes military and civilian EMS, things of that nature. The lifeblood of America. Okay, they promote our stories. They promote them in many ways. They pick up what normally publishers don't pick up, because they don't quite understand us.
That makes sense.
So, with that being said, okay, your name, and I'm going to say it, and I hope I do it right here, is Tom Petitmermet. Is that correct?
It's pretty close. It's actually Petitmermet.
And see, Koz said that. Petitmermet. All right.
Yeah, it's a Swiss name.
Okay. All right. And you are the author of Pretzel 06, Memories of a Forward Air Controller, Southeast Asia, 1970 to 1971.
That is correct.
And I'm going to let you take it from here. One,
okay.
Which would you rather do? You want to tell us about your military, or you want to tell us about the book first?
Why don't I start with the book, because that's kind of why we're here today.
Okay.
It really started 2 years ago when my then 9-year-old grandson, who fortunately lives in Denver, asked me what I did in the war. He said, Grandpa, what'd you do in the war? And I said, Mason, it's been many, many years. That was 47 years ago when he asked. I said, I did some pretty interesting stuff in the war, and I thought maybe I'd try and capture the ideas of what I actually did in the war and put it in a book format so he could have it and tell folks what his grandpa did. So that's really the emphasis of where the concept of the book came from.
Okay. Well, that's a good way to start. I mean, when people are asking you, And see, we're finding that more and more, everybody. And I think we've actually had people on here capturing pictures of soldiers, getting stories behind it. People don't know us. People don't know our stories. People don't know what happened in the military. They don't even understand. I mean, this is so funny. I'm only 57 years old, and people think I'm a Vietnam veteran.
You're too young for that.
Exactly, right? But people don't. People can't relate the years because they didn't live it, and so they're kind of like, oh well, to them it's like, well, it happened in the past, and it was a time of upheaval in America and all the hippie movement, but they don't understand that happened in the late 60s, early 70s. And your time in, you were even part of the later part of the war.
Yeah, toward the end, although I graduated from college in '69, and the folks in my classes really didn't have much choice either. Join the military or you got drafted to go into the Army.
And a lot of people don't even understand that concept.
That's true.
I have caught people just sitting there going, well, we don't have the draft.
Yeah, it's all volunteer service right now, but it certainly wasn't when I was a young man quite a few years ago.
Well, exactly. I mean, things have changed. The people don't understand that it used to be when the draft came up, you had the choice of going ahead and if you heard that your number might be coming up, you either went ahead and signed up so that way you could at least get the service and possibly the job you wanted, or let them draft you and have no say-so.
Yeah, my great goal at the time was to avoid the Army in Vietnam, so I decided to join the Air Force. But that didn't work out very well.
Well,
not only did I end up in Vietnam, but I was stationed out in the field with the Army.
Oh, wow.
To top the whole scenario off. So I got basically both negative sides of the equation, but as it turned out, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life.
Well, and now I've flown 535 sorties. What did you fly?
When I was flying in Vietnam, I was flying in an O-2, which was a unarmed observation aircraft that we used to fly down around 1,000 feet, and our job was to find the targets, mark the targets with a white phosphorus rocket, and then direct the fighters to drop the bombs, theoretically, if we got close to the target with our marking rockets. And then after they dropped the bombs, we'd go in and do a bomb damage assessment and see exactly what if they hit the target and what kind of damage they'd done.
That would have been a very hairy job.
It was pretty hairy, and I look back on that. Thank goodness I was 23 years old and really didn't know any better.
Isn't that always the way
it
is?
A lot of the forward air controllers were young. That was my very first assignment after pilot training.
Oh, wow.
And, I was happy as a clam because I could fly every single day and build up my flying hours. And it was a pretty exciting mission, I have to admit, especially looking back on it now that I'm a father of 3 kids and 7 grandchildren.
Wow.
I wouldn't have been doing that if I had a family at the time.
Oh, no way. I mean, that I'm sure you had. Now, I have to ask, did you ever get knocked out of the sky?
I didn't get knocked out of the sky, but the airplane was hit numerous times.
Oh, I'm sure. It's flying that low? Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
I'm sure there was many times you were just sitting there making all sorts of expletives.
Oh yeah, we had a pretty good vocabulary going. Yeah, I don't say around my grandchildren anymore.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, okay, your book is about those times. You were you were supporting the SOG and the 5th Special Forces Group.
That is correct.
And
another interesting scenario on that, when I got into that particular mission, it was one of those very secret missions that our president at the time, Nixon, said we weren't doing.
Uh-huh.
So we had to actually sign a non-disclosure agreement that we wouldn't talk about our mission for the next 25 years.
Wow.
And so it was kind of interesting because, fortunately, I was able to find me a beautiful Air Force nurse at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida when I came back. Got married, and I couldn't tell her what I did in Vietnam for 25 years.
That would have been hard.
It was hard. It was kind of hard on her, but kind of hard on me too, because I would hear people talking about the mission over there and heard a lot of smoke coming from people that I knew was not true.
Well, here's the thing, guys, and I'm going to say this as a quick insert. Think about, okay, we've got a lot of combat mission guys who've been in the sandbox, okay? And you guys have been told you can't talk about your missions, or you don't want to talk about your missions. Okay, Tom is actually, because he's past that 25-year mark, he's allowed to talk about stuff that, like he said, he wasn't allowed to talk about, and on top of it, people were lying about. And he's actually allowed to talk about the dangers and everything else. Now, and here's another, give you an idea about this, guys. What was it? Apocalypse Now, Platoon, and all those came out before the 25-year mark.
Yeah, they sure did.
So things like what Tom did haven't been put into script, haven't been put into movies, that type of thing. It's just something for you guys to think about. We as a nation have put stuff like this under wraps. Tom is making sure that we understand what really happened, and he's kind of setting the record straight at the same time. So
yeah, that's an interesting observation, because some of the mission, all of the mission, and the reason ours was so classified is we weren't doing it in Vietnam. We were doing it in Cambodia and Laos.
Oh.
And so that made it even more spectacular, because some of the folks that actually did the mission in Vietnam could talk about their mission. But the fact that we were doing it out country, our government said we weren't doing anything out country. That was probably the reason it was so classified, because it was all out country.
Wow. That I mean, it's, so think about this. Okay, this goes into your sorties, the things that you witnessed, you saw, the humor behind things, and the dangers. I'm going to have to ask you, in the book, kind of give us a teaser. What is like one of the missions that will grab us and want us to read your book?
I think that probably the one mission that, and I described pretty much in detail, was when I did a search and rescue mission. Now, Forward Air Controller not only was responsible for controlling the airstrikes, if there was ever a airplane shot down and we happened to be on scene, we became the on-scene commander to try and pick up the guys that had been shot down.
Okay.
And so I remember the date exactly. It was 1 October 1971. I was flying in Cambodia, and I heard and saw that an airplane had gone down. I saw the smoke, probably 25 miles from my location.
Yeah.
And I heard the beep that we have an emergency beeper when someone ejects out of an airplane. There's a beeper that goes off, and you can tell that there's an airplane down. So I flew over that location. It was about 5 miles inside Vietnam. And I worked the search and rescue mission, got the backseater out. He was able to parachute out. The guy in the front seat, unfortunately, went in with the airplane.
Ooh.
And crashed. And as we worked, got a helicopter come in with some special forces troop. They pulled the body out of the front seat of the airplane and took it back to my little base called Quan Loy. I finished my mission and landed, and found out that we didn't have any ability to store the body back at Quan Loy.
Oh.
So they were going to fly it out the next day, and being the impetus lieutenant, I said, bullshit. I'm going to take that body back to the main base.
Yeah.
So I put the body in the back of my airplane. I had a back seat in the airplane, and it was pretty funny. It's going to be an uneventful flight back to. It's going to take him down to Saigon to the mortuary. Intended it to be a fairly innocuous flight, just about a 45-minute flight down to Saigon.
Yeah.
As soon as I got airborne, I got notified that we had what we called a prairie fire emergency, which meant one of our insert teams that we had put in the ground a few days earlier was under attack by the enemy.
Okay.
So I had to go out and try and rescue that team. All the while I had this body bag in the back of my airplane. And so to this day, I still have, and I can't get rid of it, I can still smell whenever I come near burning flesh.
Oh.
And it's a gagging smell, and possibly I know one that I'll never forget.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I go out and get the second team rescued. All the time I'm flying around, the body bag is trying to fly around in the back of the airplane and join me in the front cockpit, and it was kind of exciting. But nevertheless, I get the mission done, and by that time it's dark out, and I have to fly down to Ton Sanut, which is in Saigon. I landed, and boy, I was ready to go get some beers after that, but the Army folks at the morgue said, "No, Lieutenant, you got to go with us until we identify the body."
Really?
So I hopped in the back of the ambulance with the body bag and go over to the morgue. Sat there for about an hour, and they came and said, "Okay, Lieutenant, you can leave now." I said, "Okay." I said, "By the way, got any name on that pilot, just out of curiosity?" They said, "Yeah, stand by. Let me check." So they came back and told me the pilot's name. It was a pilot named James Neuendorf.
Okay.
And to be quite honest, I almost crapped my pants because he was one of my instructor pilots at pilot training 2 years before.
Oh, wow.
And had an opportunity to fly his body down after the crash. And so that was probably one of the most memorable flights.
Yeah.
Just by the fact that it was so personal to me that I was able to fly the guy that really taught me how to fly an airplane, who was shot down on an RF-4 down to the morgue.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. That is quite a story.
And there's a follow-on to this story too, which is kind of amazing. In 2008, and I'll talk a little bit more in detail about the FAC memorial, but we were doing a memorial to the almost 300 FACs that were killed in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I got online and was checking this Neuendorf name, and I found on the virtual Vietnam wall, I found a statement from his son, who at the time I knew his son. He was about 2 years old when I was in pilot training.
Oh, jeez.
And I contacted him and said, "Hey, I got some more information about when your dad was killed. Do you want to know that?" He said, "Yeah, I'd love to." So fortunately, he had a daughter who was, I guess, 1 year old at the time.
Oh, my.
They lived up in north of Boulder, Colorado. And I went up on a family reunion. There was about 40 people there from their family. And I was able to tell them the specific details of when their father, brother, and husband got shot down and killed. That was in 2008. So thinking from 71 to 2008, I had that information and didn't know who to share it with until I found his son on the radio, on the internet.
That had to have been something.
Yeah, it was pretty spectacular.
And see, those are the type of stories that, again, you don't hear about, and it's kind of kept quiet. We talk about this stuff amongst ourselves as soldiers. The fact that you're putting it out in a book is really quite unique, and I am glad to hear it. And again, I'll always say, thank you for your service, of course. Thank you for serving our forward troops the way you did. I know, especially being Air Force, that's the last thing you expected to do.
Exactly. I kept looking for the officers club and the golf course out at Quan Loy, and we had neither. we had no runway lights, no control tower, and we flew out of there at nighttime.
Wow, that's a lot of nighttime hours then.
Yeah, it was pretty bizarre. But again, being 23 and I didn't know any better, I thought, well, this is what we do in the Air Force, so might as well do it and have a good time doing it.
Well, exactly. I mean, as we always say in the Army, is embrace the suck.
Yeah.
And well, you got to taste some of that.
Yeah, it was kind of a unique thing. Every now and then we would ask the Army guys if they wanted to go flying with us,
mm-hmm.
and they said, "Hell no, we could get shot down and killed." And so they would ask us if we wanted to go out on a ground mission with them, and we said, "Hell no, we could get killed on the ground." So it was kind of the perspective of what you were doing at the time.
Wow. Well, I do find it an honor that you're willing to talk about this on our show. We always appreciate our our veterans, no matter what war they've been in. And I know we a lot of times we get, and excuse me, we get our Afghanistan, Iraq veterans. We don't get as many. I've gotten a couple Vietnam veterans, and I appreciate those. And this is giving you guys a little bit more history about me. When I went in, we still had Vietnam veterans in the military, and so you heard what they went through. I went in '81. There were still guys who had been in that were, E5, E6, E7.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Who had been in since like 68 or 67 or 66. Yep. And the things that they had to tell was always enriching to me, because a lot of times you sit there, when I went in, there were kids who weren't really a part of Vietnam, had no connection to it. Mm-hmm. And they would sit there and say, well, why are we doing this stuff? Well, go talk to a Vietnam vet. They're the reason we do this stuff, because they figured out this is what we need to do to keep alive.
And it's kind of sad when I look back, since I stayed in the Air Force.
Are you still there? Hello? Oh, hold on. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. For some reason, Skype decided to mess with us.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty standard.
What were you saying?
Basically, what I was saying is it had, as I look back, as I stayed in the Air Force and retired after 26 years.
Oh, wow.
There was a lot of things that if I would have been the boss, we certainly would have done a lot different in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And it was kind of some stupid stuff that, thank goodness, we've sorted that out when we went to the first Gulf War, because a lot of our senior leadership at the time had been counterparts with me and a little bit older, and they saw how stupid that war was run.
Oh, yeah.
He had an opportunity in a Gulf War, we did it right.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, the war in Vietnam was they had a taste of it in Korea.
Yeah.
But they didn't learn from it.
No, they didn't.
They still tried to believe that battlefield tactics from World War II were still going to work.
Right.
And command structure and battle and field tactics still were going to work that way. It took, I think, didn't it start to sink in somewhere around 71, where they needed to realize that it was bush tactic rather than battlefield tactic?
Yeah, it was, but there was so much political crap involved. Even with us flying at the secret mission in Cambodia and Laos, we had our hands tied in a number of cases where we saw lucrative targets that we knew exactly what it was, and we couldn't get permission to strike them.
Exactly. I mean, it was a political...
Oh, absolutely, and it was frustrating. Even as a 23, 24-year-old, I knew that was kind of AFU a bit, and consequently, we did the best we could.
Oh, yeah, and that's all you can ever do.
Yeah.
And I appreciate this talk. I worked with a lot of work. I was a psychiatric specialist and a medic.
Okay.
And in the Army.
Okay.
So I worked on a psychiatric ward part-time and was in the field as a medic part-time.
Okay.
And I worked with, because I was a psychiatric specialist, even when I was in the field as a medic, guys would come and talk to me.
Sure.
Vietnam vets were the quickest to sniff us out. and try to befriend us and go have a beer and say, hey, I need to talk.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear they did that.
It happened many times. And the stories they would come home with, I always had a good laugh. Everybody said, I've heard many many soldiers try to say that they were actually a tunnel rat.
Oh, gosh.
You've heard that too, right?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And you sit there and you go, there was an actual job specifier, and there were only a handful that were actually real tunnel rats.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually knew one.
That's an interesting concept with the idea that size counts.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had to be small to get into those tunnels.
Oh yeah, this guy, he was actually a psychiatric specialist.
Oh God. Was that after he was a tunnel rat, he became one, right?
Uh-huh. And the guy was I'm all of 5'8" 3/4.
Okay.
He came up to my chin.
Yeah. That's a specialty. That's exactly what they needed, because those were tight fits, because most of the bad guys were little people too.
Yeah, yeah. And he actually was able to it got identified to me because he started talking to me.
Okay.
I worked night shift most of the time, and he would work night shift or evening shift, and he started talking to me, and I'd heard many a time someone say I was a tunnel rat, and it's like, yeah, I've heard that before. But this guy, later on, one of our psychiatrists came around to me and said, "Is such and such talking to you?" And I said, "Yes, he is." And he said, "Well," he said, "let me know if these subjects come up, because I need to know if something actually comes up, if these things actually do come up."
Wow.
And I said, "So he's an actual tunnel rat?" And he said,
Yeah.
"Yes." He was an actual, that was his MOS. He did that his whole entire tour. Several tours, excuse me.
To my mind, falls in the crazy category.
Oh, and you'd be right. You would be so right on that one. I mean, the stories he had to tell were crazy. And he truly, I can't get into it because it would be improper of me, but he had some true takeaways from it.
Yeah, I bet.
And some true PTSD. But yeah, Vietnam was definitely a different monster, and I know our audience listens and Vietnam always has interesting portions of it. Some of it, and excuse me, I don't like the political side of it. There will be people who that's all they get into when they write their books. They'll tell you the political side. But to me, the tactics were the interesting part. And the knowing what you were getting into, and yet you got into it anyway. And the fact that you flew into that mission. Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. Obviously, politics appear to be a much bigger deal these days, but we were pretty aware of the politics when we were in Vietnam. As even when we get back to the main base, we had a thing called Armed Forces Radio and TV that we could hear the politicians bloviating about what evil people we were and fighting that war, and it really affected us. I have to say it affected us, because we didn't feel we were getting the support of the folks that sent us over there. We obviously didn't volunteer.
Yeah,
that's where we ended up.
And that's the one thing that I think one of the takeaways from Vietnam was when people come back, it was not the soldiers, it was the politicians that sent you. So
exactly.
So therefore, you don't take it out on the soldiers.
Yeah.
And I think Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and even Grenada, we kind of learned those lessons, and people came back.
Yeah.
And they were appreciated. I've heard resentment among Vietnam veterans about that. How do you feel about that?
I don't feel any resentment. I guess that what I feel is a disappointment the fact that I was doing what I was told that I certainly didn't volunteer and say, yeah, I'll go be a forward air controller.
Yeah.
Put me in a psych ward if they did that. But that's, I think, the main thing I was disappointed in was the folks that really denigrated the soldiers that were doing that because we were told to do that.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I mean, they were, I mean, I get their view. They were against government and everything else.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it was government.
But they're against the wrong people.
Exactly. The soldiers are not government. The soldiers were doing what they were told to do. And then a lot of people don't understand the contract that you sign.
Yeah.
You know, you swear you will do as told.
Yeah.
How high, how far, whatever.
Exactly.
And a lot of people,
I came back in I guess it was the 15th of December, 1971, and flew on a contract jet into San Francisco and had all the crazies yelling and screaming at me.
Oh, wow.
Transferred airplanes there, flew into Seattle, had the same thing, and then transferred again to my hometown in Portland. And each stop there, in the old days, they could go right out to the arrival gates.
Oh, wow.
And they were screaming and yelling, baby killers and spitting on us. It was a pretty ugly time. I was less than impressed.
I don't doubt that. But your book definitely sounds interesting.
Good.
What I've heard, and I've tried to make sure people understand where you come from and where Vietnam comes from, because some of our viewers are younger and don't have any real attachment to Vietnam, and for you to be able to talk about something that was that classified and the danger. I mean, come on, guys, everybody in the chat, think about this. We all know feats, okay? He flew 1,000 feet above tree. Is it above tree or above ground?
Well, depend on where we were. Some of the jungle trees were 40, 50 feet high. But
Okay.
yeah, I was basically at 1,000 feet above the ground is where we did, because you had to be able to see where the bad guys were.
Exactly.
I know the squadron would prefer us. We flew higher, but we were smart enough to know we needed to fly where we could see the targets.
And so if you think about it, his plane could be heard. He could be seen. And his plane isn't that fast. I mean, guys, look at the picture. That plane is not fast. It becomes an easy target. And he did that. That was his job. And he did it because and I mean that's, to me, that is saying a lot about him. And think about the tales think about what he put in this book. He flew that low, getting shot at the same time having to keep his wits long enough to be able to spot what his mission was, meaning flares. Being able to spot if there's if the bombs or whatever was supposed to be going on went right, and then any fallout afterwards.
Yeah, and that was pretty much a standard mission, and throw in doing it at nighttime was even more bizarre.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing all that.
One of the ways we decided to help us not get shot down is we turned off all our exterior lights so they couldn't be seen from the ground. The problem was, so did the fighters.
Oh,
so
wow.
there we are in the dark. And that was probably one of the biggest threats during night missions, was running into the fighters, or them running into us, because they also had their lights off so they couldn't be seen from the ground.
And now think about this, guys, because y'all have night vision, and in current wars we have night vision. Fighter pilots have infrared. They have all sorts of tools. Now, tell me, what kind of tools did you have back then?
I had a pair of 20/20 eyeballs. That was it.
Think about that, guys. He had to do this all by eye.
The other interesting scenario that I look back that many years ago we didn't have GPS.
Mm-hmm.
I flew with 181 maps.
Oh, wow.
1 to 50,000 maps, and that was my primary reference point. And so I got very good at reading maps, and I carried it. As I said, every single flight I had 181 maps that I carried with me.
Oh, wow. I just can't imagine. See,
all of us old facts said if we would have had GPS, we probably would have won the war. The politicians would have gotten out of the way.
Well, then this is something you guys need to think about. Y'all, you guys can take GPS to war. You can take cell phones to war. You can call in missions a lot easier, a lot quicker. You don't have. Back then, the radio was it. The radio, call in and hope to God that you called in the right password, the right challenge, and that the Viet Cong weren't listening in and popping the same smoke you were. Yep,
and they did that.
I heard about those stories.
Yeah, that is an absolutely true story. Not only did we want to make sure that they were the right people, but even us pilots. When I first got there, we had to go to Intel and give a bunch of passwords to the Intel folks, because if we ever got shot down, they would challenge us with a password to determine if that was really us.
Wow!
Because they could, if that bad guys got the radios, they could call the rescue forces in and basically ambush them. So we had it on the same scenario. Although I could usually tell if the ground troops that I was supporting, I could usually tell that they were Americans by some of their colloquial language that they would tell me.
Uh-huh.
Said, yep, that's our guys. I recognize that word.
Yep, and see, a lot of times, and this is a book I would be interested in, because I can relate. I have a connection to Vietnam through my peers, my superiors when I was in the service.
Yep.
And it's also during my time, and I know there are some of you that this is your time. This is when you were either in or you were young. You heard about this stuff. This is what was going on, and this is stuff that should definitely be relatable, and something that I think all of us should be looking into, because, as they say, World War II, there's very few left.
Right.
And the Korean War, they're starting to go down in numbers also.
Yep.
They're trying to record this stuff. Vietnam vets, they're going down in numbers too. Stuff is catching up to them. Look this stuff up. Learn a little bit about what it was like before GPS. Cell phones, laptops. I mean, trying to fly a plane by eye and a map. That is, I mean, that had just, yeah.
It tells you how old I am.
Well, but that's the thing. Okay, I tell guys when I was going in, or when I was in, I had just qualified to go into warrant officer flight school to fly helicopters.
Okay.
And they didn't have GPS in the helicopters then.
No.
And they said, "How good are you at map reading? And how quick are you?"
What's a map?
Oh, no.
You mentioned something interesting about World War II veterans. There was a story in the Colorado Springs Gazette this morning. A 107-year-old World War II fighter pilot is still alive.
Wow.
And he was telling his story of his combat time. But 107 is pretty spectacular.
Oh, that is great.
One of the very few people still alive.
And what is it during the State of the Union that Tuscany?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to think about this. I mean, I always say this: we're the top 4% of the U.S. We are the top because we came to the call when asked. We served, and when we did that, we served with honor. And when we say that we're the top 4%, well, that means there's also some of us who are older, and they served too. They answered that call too in a different time, when there wasn't the technology to guide you, when there wasn't the ability to pull up a cell phone in midair and go, okay, I think I got service, sure. Okay, hey, I can't find. No, They can't do any of that. And how many times did you have to go radio silent?
Very, very often.
This type of stuff is unimaginable these days. And I can't imagine trying. Well, I can, because at the time, when I was actually going to go to warrant officer flight school, I knew how to read a map. And they said, well, you're going to have to be on the fly. You're going to have to be very quick. Yeah. And I said, I can do it. I was pretty good. But nowadays, it's GPS, buddy. And to be able to connect to this, think about those type of things. This book gives you an understanding of what it took to, and we're talking spotters. We're talking people who go in and mark stuff, have to stick around knowing that they're going to get shot at, and then see what the fallout was. These days, a lot of times it's done by helicopter. And it's done by
or satellite. You can actually do the BDA by satellite.
Exactly, or done by satellite, or by the plane. What are those planes up in the air?
Drones.
Yeah, by drones. There you go. They don't have to put a person in harm's way anymore. Just think about that, guys. This is a great connection. If you want to know more about it, we've posted in both rooms. Your book on Amazon.
Good.
He's from the group Tactical 16, which helps get military, firefighters, EMS, police. There's stories out there, and these are the type of stories we should be looking at and remembering and passing down to our kids. Because these are the stories we were a part of, even if you weren't in the Vietnam War. I wasn't in the Vietnam War. But this is the type of stuff that they need to see. These are what made us. These are what made us the soldier. These are what made us the military. And, I appreciate you coming on and talking about and bringing up this, because this is, we always hear about we hear about grunts. We hear about TED offensives. We hear about some of the fighter pilots who get downed. But we don't hear about the guys who don't get downed, manage to save their butts. And
yeah, I managed to save mine.
Exactly. And still manage to do their job and be the ones that made sure everybody who did have the guns got where they were supposed to. That is what a lot of us should be able to relate to, because as they say, for every one combat person, it takes 10 support.
Yeah, that's probably about the right number. Yeah.
And if you think about it, guys, there's a lot of us out there that even if we did end up in combat, we were also support. Medics are support. They ended up
absolutely.
But they were still they end up in combat, but their job was support. You, I'm sure, ended up in some very hairy spots where you were getting shot at and had to dodge, dig, and run.
Yeah, we used to call those seat-sucking missions, which meant when we landed, the crew chief had to pull our seat cushion out of our ass.
I love it.
but another perspective on the Vietnam thing, I belong to a thing called the FAC Association, where we got a FAC net where we exchange notes and stuff. But I'm guessing probably 1 to 2. I see 1 to 2 deaths a week on our FAC net where our guys are dying.
Yeah.
So we really encourage folks that if they have a story to tell, they should get it in writing before they forget it.
And guys, thinking about that, everybody who's been through war, even in World War II, they don't talk about it but there were things that happened.
Oh yeah.
In World War I, it happened. What was it? Mustard gas was the thing back then. things, we get exposed to things. In Vietnam, in the Vietnam War, everybody talks about Agent Orange. And that was a very big thing. It caused a lot of issues. We're now seeing people who have made it into their 50s, 60s, and 70s won't make it into their 80s and 90s. But people there who are the same generation are making it there. Because our guys went and did what we were asked. And we got exposed to stuff. So we need to remember these guys. Just like you guys, you have the Gulf War syndrome.
Yep.
And that's my era. And then now they're talking about how prevalent PTSD is in these last wars in the sandbox.
I don't think we had a name for our PTSD from Vietnam.
Yes, you did. I can correct you on that one.
What was it called?
I can correct you because
do that.
I was actually,
what did you call it?
I was actually, like I said, I was a psychiatric specialist in the Army. Okay, they gave us a history of PTSD, and they gave us a history, and they said PTSD used to be shell shock. Shell shock went to battle fatigue.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And battle fatigue, PTSD did come around in Vietnam in your time. In the early 70s, they started calling it PTSD.
Really? I guess I was oblivious.
Well, because even though it was being called that, it doesn't mean it was a big buzzword at the time.
Okay.
And they started trying to learn how to treat PTSD in that time. And that's where my training, the training I went through came from, was Vietnam, from Vietnam veterans.
Okay.
So, no, I actually know that one.
Okay, good.
But no, we were actually
just an old retired fighter pilot. I don't know that term.
Well, exactly. And see, people don't think fighter pilots could have gone through enough to end up with PTSD. But they could.
Oh, yeah.
It's just people don't relate that because it's like, well, all they had to do, they didn't see what happened. Not necessarily true.
Yeah.
So
the facts certainly saw what was happening.
Exactly.
We were down there in the weeds with them.
And if you don't know what he means by FAC, it's forward air controller. They have planes and satellites that do that now, but back then they had to have a spotter out there, and that is a FAC. So, well, we are getting to the top of the hour. Okay. Is there anything you would like to say about your book? I think I hope I didn't ramble on about Vietnam, but a lot of times I try to let the audience understand the Vietnam side because it's not something that really is brought up.
Yeah, I think the key thing in my book basically is kind of tells you the life of, there was hundreds of facts, probably thousands of facts, and every one of us did the exact same mission in different parts of the country. Mine was unique because I did it out country, but some of the tasks that we did, just about every single fact that flew over there did exactly the same thing. And most of us were young and unaware, but it kind of built our basic philosophy of life, if you want to put it that way. But there's some stories in there that if you know of your grandfather or your uncle or somebody was a fact, you'll probably relate to some of the details I put in the book.
Well, and even if you can't relate, it's good to understand all the different types of jobs that were in the military and all the different types of things that we did, because they don't do them anymore. Back
That's
when
true.
You and I were in, there were 300 some jobs just in the Army.
Yeah.
Now they're down to 100 and some.
Yeah.
So this is something.
Before we go, I just have a very philosophical question to ask.
Go ahead.
Does WTF Nation mean what I think it means?
Officially, no. Unofficially,
Okay.
yes.
Because WTF means something to facts.
Okay. I don't know what it means to a fact, but to a soldier,
Okay, then it means the same thing.
Yes.
We added an O of a WTFO is what we knew that by. So I
Yeah,
was just curious if that was based on what your radio station was named after.
we can't officially say that because it's frowned upon
Understand? I understand completely.
in our politically correct society.
You've answered my question, man.
But yes. Well, again, look up his book, guys. This to me is is interesting. I'm one who loves. I don't like necessarily the books about the politics because the politics to me were very sad. But I love to know what happened on the ground, and I love to know what happened with the actual soldier, the person who was up front in the line, what really happened, and what really went on. This is what that's about, guys. This gives. It's not a grunt, but it's actually someone who had to actually help out the grunts, who had to help out the pilots, who had to make sure that people got rescued, and who made sure the targets were hit. So, thank you very much for coming on.
You
sir.
bet. Thank you. Pleasure doing it.
And you're always welcome back. Let us know. Keep up with Spanky and Mom. Let them know how the book is going.
You bet.
And if you decide to keep writing, if you put something out more, please let us know.
In fact, I just turned in another book to TAC 16 about my Cold War days intercepting the Russians in Alaska.
Oh, okay. Yes, please make sure you keep up with Mom on this, okay?
Yep, because Chris Schaefer, the president of CEO, is a good friend of mine, and he's in the process of going to put that next one together, probably be out in October timeframe.
Wow. Well, don't hesitate to, when it comes out, to ask to come back on, and let's go ahead and kind of make a book outing at that point.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, my friend.
Okay, thank you much.
Thank you much, sir. Everybody, that is Tom, and I'm going to let you pronounce your last name.
Petitmermet.
Petitmermet. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Tom. I loved hearing from you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. That was Tom Petitmermet. See, I can say it. That sounds like a really interesting book, everybody. I know not everybody can relate to the Vietnam War because we have the Afghan War, the Iraq War, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Grenada. We have all these things, okay? But a lot of our current military stances came from Vietnam. Okay? So it's something to consider, and it's something to look at, because if you want to know where things came from, what mistakes were made, and how we might have learned from them, that's where it came from. So, all right, everybody, we are out of time, and it is time to go ahead and let you guys start your week. We have now, it is time for house cleaning, and I actually have something to to talk about. Mondays, we have the Monday Night Edition with Ice and Flash. Tuesdays, we have Pop Culture Warrior with CQ and Radar. Now, if you didn't catch Tuesday, you missed out. It is a fun show. And I'll tell you what, this guy knows pop culture. He talked Marvel like nobody I've ever seen, okay? He talks everything. It's a good thing. Don't hesitate to listen to his show. Wednesdays are our days off, or Donza meditation days. Thursdays are Sergeant's Time with Ice and Spanky. And then you've got Sundays with Kicking It with Koz. I am Owl. As always, everybody, please keep it safe, keep it real, keep it simple. But above all, remember to smile. Because you don't know who you're going to help, who's going to see that smile and say, hey, it was just at the right time, and you just made someone's day, and you just don't know who that's going to help. All right, everybody. We are at that point, so thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Love every single one of you. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over, and we're going to listen to... Why don't we listen to some... Jay, ready? And I'll see you next week. Thank you for coming, and, well, shots.
Radio is to be considered the opinion of the person that stated it, and not an official representation of WTF Nation Radio or U.S. Army WTF Moments.
Price does not include tax, title, or license. Some assembly required. Each item sold separately. Batteries not included. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. If conditions persist, contact a physician. Individual results may vary. Keep out of the reach of children. Avoid prolonged exposure to direct sunlight. Keep in a cool, dark place. And
please enjoy the show. Shots.